They underestimated me because I looked young. I proved them wrong. I walked into assurance first, fresh out of grad school, feeling like I'd won the lottery. Junior Data Analyst, Chicago, big company. It was everything I'd worked for. I even splurged on a new, ridiculously uncomfortable pair of heels for the first day. My first impression was overwhelming. The office was a sea of gray cubicles, punctuated by the occasional sad-looking plant. My supervisor, Sarah Chen, was a bright spot. She was young, energetic, and genuinely seemed happy to have me on the team. Then I met Rick Thompson. Rick was a presence. Older, probably mid-40s, with a thinning comb-over and a perpetual air of superiority. He'd been at Assurance First for 15 years, and he made sure everyone knew it. He gave me a once-over that clearly said, "You look like you should still be in college," and grunted a greeting. "So, Amy," he drawled, "Sarah tells me you're the whiz kid from, where was it again? Some fancy university." I smiled, trying to ignore the condescension. "Yes, I just finished my master's at Northwestern." "Master's, huh? Well, around here we value experience more than fancy degrees. You'll learn that soon enough." That was the start. From then on, Rick made my life a low-grade, constant irritation. He dismissed my ideas in meetings, only to rephrase them later as his own. He accidentally scheduled meetings without me, leaving me scrambling to catch up. He even seemed to subtly undermine me in front of clients, making comments like, "Amy's still getting her feet wet, so bear with her if she makes a mistake." I tried to brush it off. Maybe I was being too sensitive. Maybe this was just how things were in the corporate world. But the constant digs wore me down. I started doubting myself, second-guessing every decision. Then came the risk assessment project. I spent weeks buried in data, developing a new model that I genuinely believed could revolutionize how Assurance First evaluated insurance risk. It was complex but elegant, and I was convinced it could save the company millions. I presented my findings to Sarah and Mr. Abernathy, the CEO. Mr. Abernathy was a traditional, numbers-driven guy. He seemed impressed but skeptical. "This is ambitious, MS. Hayes," he said, adjusting his glasses. "Are you sure these projections are accurate?" "Yes, sir. I've run the model through multiple simulations and the results are consistent." Rick, who had been silent until now, chimed in. "It's certainly innovative, perhaps a little too innovative. We need to be careful about straying too far from proven methods." But he smiled, a snake in the grass. Over the next few weeks, I noticed something strange. The data I was working with seemed off. Discrepancies kept popping up, inconsistencies that I couldn't explain. I chalked it up to glitches, coding errors, and spent hours meticulously correcting them. Little did I know, Rick was deliberately sabotaging my work. He had access to the company's databases and was subtly manipulating the data to make my model appear flawed. The culmination of all this was the investor presentation. We were pitching my model to a group of potential investors, and the stakes were high. Rick, of course, was there, radiating fake support. During the presentation, everything went sideways. The data that was displayed on the screen was completely wrong. The projections were inaccurate, the charts were nonsensical. It was a disaster. Mr. Abernathy was furious. "MS. Hayes, what is the meaning of this? This model is clearly not ready for prime time." The investors looked unimpressed, and the deal started to slip away. I was mortified. I stammered, trying to explain, but I couldn't make sense of the data on the screen. I don't understand. This isn't what I presented." Rick, ever the opportunist, jumped in. "Perhaps MS. Hayes rushed things. These models can be tricky, especially for someone with limited experience." After the presentation, Sarah pulled me aside. "Amy, I know you worked hard on this, but maybe you need to slow down. Double-check everything. This reflects badly on all of us." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I was humiliated, defeated, and on the verge of losing my job. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the presentation in my head, trying to figure out what went wrong. The data I presented to Sarah and Mr. Abernathy earlier was correct, but the presentation data was completely different. It didn't make sense. That's when I started to suspect foul play. I needed help. And the only person I could think of was David Miller, the IT guy. David was friendly, unassuming, and always willing to lend a hand. We'd bonded over our shared love of bad office coffee and shared disdain for Rick's condescending attitude. "David," I said, cornering him by the coffee machine the next morning, "I need a favor. A big one." I explained what had happened during the presentation and my suspicion that someone had tampered with the data. David listened intently, his brow furrowed. "That's messed up, Amy. But how can I help? I need you to look at the data logs. See who accessed the files related to my model, especially the presentation data." I know it's a long shot, but I have to try. David hesitated. That's risky. I could get in serious trouble if I get caught. I know, I said, pleading with him, but my career is on the line. Please, David, I wouldn't ask if it wasn't important. He sighed. All right, Amy, I'll do it, but you owe me big time. Over the next few days, David worked his magic. He discreetly accessed the data logs, carefully sifting through lines of code. I waited anxiously, trying to focus on my work but constantly checking my phone for updates. Finally, one evening, David called me. Amy, I found something. Someone accessed the presentation data files the night before the presentation. Changed a bunch of values. And guess who it was? My heart pounded. Who? Rick Thompson. His employee ID is all over the logs. He used his admin privileges to bypass security protocols. I felt a surge of anger mixed with vindication. I knew it, David, you're a lifesaver. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, he said. I also found evidence that he's been accessing other data files related to your model, making subtle changes over the past few weeks. It's clear he was trying to sabotage your work. I couldn't believe it. Rick had deliberately tried to ruin my career, all because he felt threatened by a whiz kid from a fancy university. I knew I had to act, but I had to be smart. I couldn't just barge into Mr. Abernathy's office with accusations. I needed solid proof. I spent the next few days meticulously compiling a report. I gathered screenshots of the data logs, timelines of Rick's data manipulations, and even contacted a few colleagues who had witnessed Rick's suspicious behavior. Kevin, another junior analyst, admitted that Rick had pressured him to proofread some of my reports, but he now realized Rick was looking for errors to exploit. He was hesitant to get involved, but eventually agreed to provide a statement. It was risky, but necessary. I knew this could blow up in my face if I wasn't careful. I needed to present a strong, irrefutable case. Finally, I was ready. I scheduled a meeting with Sarah, asking her to bring Mr. Abernathy. I didn't tell her what it was about, only that it was urgent. The meeting was tense. Sarah looked concerned, and Mr. Abernathy looked impatient. Rick, oblivious to what was about to happen, smirked at me from across the table. All right, Ms. Hayes. Mr. Abernathy said, what's so important that you had to pull us away from our work? I took a deep breath. Mr. Abernathy, I believe that my work has been deliberately sabotaged, and I have evidence to prove it. Rick scoffed. Sabotaged? What are you talking about, Amy? Are you trying to blame someone else for your own mistakes? I ignored him and presented my report. I calmly walked through the evidence, explaining how Rick had accessed and manipulated the data, providing screenshots and timelines. As I spoke, Rick's smirk faded, replaced by a look of panic. Sarah looked shocked, and Mr. Abernathy's face grew increasingly grim. This is a serious accusation, Ms. Hayes, Mr. Abernathy said when I finished. Do you have any proof besides these screenshots? Yes, sir. David Miller from IT can verify the data logs, and I have a statement from Kevin, who witnessed Rick's attempts to find flaws in my work. Mr. Abernathy turned to Rick. Mr. Thompson, do you have anything to say? Rick stammered, This is ridiculous. I would never do anything like that. Amy's just trying to get back at me because I gave her constructive criticism. Constructive criticism, I said, my voice rising. You deliberately tried to ruin my career. The tension in the room was palpable. Mr. Abernathy held up his hand. Enough, Mr. Thompson. I'm going to have to ask you to leave the room. We need to discuss this further. Rick glared at me as he stormed out of the office. Sarah looked at me with a mixture of surprise and admiration. Amy, I had no idea, she said. I'm so sorry. It's okay, Sarah. I just wanted to set the record straight. Mr. Abernathy leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. This is a serious matter, Ms. Hayes. If what you're saying is true, Mr. Thompson will face serious consequences. He launched an internal investigation. David confirmed the data logs, and Kevin provided his statement. It didn't take long for the truth to come out. The company placed Rick on administrative leave. Brenda from HR called me to ask questions. It turned out this wasn't the first time Rick had acted inappropriately. Several other junior employees had complained about his condescending and belittling behavior. The investigation confirmed everything I had said. Rick had deliberately sabotaged my work, manipulated data, and engaged in professional misconduct. A few weeks later, Mr. Abernathy called me into his office. Ms. Hayes, he said, the investigation is complete. Mr. Thompson has been terminated from Assurance First, effective immediately. I felt a wave of relief wash over me. It was finally over. Thank you, Mr. Abernathy, I said. No, Ms. Hayes, he said, thank you. You brought this to our attention and you provided the evidence to back it up. You showed courage and integrity." He paused. "We were wrong to underestimate you. Your model has the potential to save this company a significant amount of money, and you deserve to be recognized for your work." He offered me a promotion, a new title, and more responsibility. I accepted, of course. Rick was gone, and I was finally vindicated, but the experience changed me. I learned a valuable lesson about office politics and the importance of standing up for myself. I also learned that even when you're underestimated, you can achieve anything with hard work, intelligence, and a little bit of help from your friends. The best part? My model was successfully implemented, saving the company millions, and I got to present it at an industry conference, where it received rave reviews. I'm now leading a team of data analysts, and I make sure to create a supportive and inclusive environment. I mentor junior employees, encouraging them to speak up and share their ideas. I'll never let anyone be treated the way Rick treated me. It wasn't just about getting revenge. It was about proving them wrong, about showing them that even a whiz kid who looks like she's still in college can make a difference. It was about building a better workplace, one where talent is valued and hard work is rewarded, regardless of age or experience. And sometimes, the best revenge is just being incredibly, undeniably successful.